Hello viewers, in this video I will try to give you an overview on an essay written by Frederic Jameson, and the title of the essay is Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism. Before moving on to the central theme of the topic, we have to first know the fundamentals. The fundamental of this video will be capitalism and postmodernism. Capitalism, you all know, so I will not explain. Postmodernism means what? That thing I will try to simplify for your uh, advantage. Postmodernism, in a very simple language, it is a cultural and intellectual movement that emerged in the mid 20th century. It's known for its skepticism towards traditional beliefs and values, embracing ideas like fragmentation, irony, and the blending of high and low culture. In simple terms, it's about questioning the old ideas and exploring new ways of thinking and creating. And this has been going on for a long time. So, in a very simple language, we have got to know that postmodernism is a cultural and intellectual movement that emerged in the mid 20th century, and it has always tried to question the old traditional belief system and values, and it always welcome fragmentation, irony, and blending of high and low culture. So it does not uh, accept all ideas blindly. However, postmodernism always tries to blend the old and new, and through that old and new mixture, they want to produce them or manufacture something which was never existed before. For example, let's say there is an old song, famous old song, and now you are uh, trying to use modern musical element in that old song. So that song will be a patchwork of old and new song. It will be a kind of remix song, right? So that is an example of postmodernism in the context of music. In every context it will be different. In the context of literature it will also differ. You must have heard there is a famous play by Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot. In Waiting for Godot, you will get that the character development is not occurred, right? So that means that is a part of postmodernism. Why? Because in traditional plays, you will see that often the traditional characters are evolving, but here characters are not evolving; they are remain static. If characters are remain static, it has not evolved. We don't know about the uh, conclusion of the drama or the play, no clear conclusion is given, then that will be a part of postmodernism in literature. So, in every field, in every arena, it will be different. But though it will be different, the core theme will be same. The core philosophy of the postmodernism, it will not change. I will give you one example. If you mix the cloth from your old pants with new cloth to create something like a patchwork design or a new garment, then that can be seen as an instance of postmodernism in everyday life. So, this is the simplest example related to our daily lifestyle. So, this act blends old and new elements to create something unique and personal, reflecting a playful approach to tradition and innovation. So it has happened in various contexts, in cultural contexts, in technological context, musical context, literary writing context. So it will go on, and this thing is a fundamental part of postmodernism. Okay, that's all. Now let's try to know about the essay Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism. So this essay is written by Frederic Jameson, and before moving on, I will reiterate the same thing. You have to excuse my pronunciation. I will leave no stone unturned to do my best in pronouncing a word. Still, you will see that some words are not understandable or comprehensible. So, please excuse me for that. And please read the original text. I have not fully taken uh, the crux of this essay. But through this video, it is my endeavor to give you an insight about the postmodernism, capitalism, and what the writer Frederic Jameson has tried to argue through this essay titled Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of the Late Capitalism. In postmodernism or the cultural logic of late capitalism, Frederic Jameson has explored the relationship between postmodernism and the economic system of late capitalism. Jameson argues that postmodernism is a cultural response to the conditions of late capitalism, which is characterized by the dominance of multinational corporations, the globalization of markets, and the fragmentation of social classes. One of Jameson's main arguments is that postmodernism is marked by a shift away from the deft models of modernism towards a surface or superficial aesthetic. He suggests that in a postmodern society, there is a loss of historical depth and a flattening of cultural references, leading to pastiche and pasteurization of cultural forms. Jameson also discusses the concept of the simulacrum in postmodernism, which refers to the representation of something that has no original or reality behind it. He suggests that in a postmodern society, images and representations become detached from their original meanings, leading to a sense of hyper reality. Overall, Jameson's essay provides a critical analysis of postmodernism, arguing that it is not simply a cultural style or movement but is deeply intertwined with the economic and social conditions of late capitalism. So here you can see that this passage is self-explanatory. I don't have to explain it. It has been written in a very simple and lucid language. I will not uh, explain it. Now let's move on. In postmodernism or the cultural logic of late capitalism, Frederick Jameson talked about how postmodernism is connected to the way our economy works today. He says that in our modern world, where big companies rule and everything is connected globally, our culture has changed too. One big change is that in postmodernism, things are not as deep or as serious as they used to be in modern times. So you must have seen the line that has been constantly reiterated, and that is, according to the writer, in modern world, things were deep, things had value, and things were significant. But owing to the rise of postmodernism, you can see various in the various contexts, the things are not deep, they are not serious, rather they are superficial, they have no um, solid they have no solid base or foundation. And he has said, instead of looking for deep meanings, we see a lot of mixing and matching of different styles and ideas, which Jameson calls pastiche. So this is an important concept given by the writer, pastiche. Sorry for the pronunciation again. So he has uh, opined that in postmodernism context, things are uh, things are manufactured through mixing, lots of mixing. And when different styles, different ingredients were mixed, then the originality will lost, and no individuality will be there, and no originality, no authenticity can be traced in that context, and that thing is called pastiche. It can be seen in various contexts like dressing style, hairstyle, and uh, musical style, right? And this mixing often makes things feels fake, or like they don't have a real meaning behind them, which he calls simulacrum. Overall, Jameson's essay says that postmodernism is more than just a new way of making art or culture. It's a reflection of how our world is changing economically and socially. For example, he has not said, but I have simplified it. Imagine walking into a shopping mall that is designed to look like a medieval castle, complete with modern shops inside. This blend of old and new styles without any real historical connection is an everyday instance of pastiche that you must have seen. As described by Frederic Jameson, it reflects how postmodernism mixes and matches different cultural elements in a way that can feel artificial or lacking in deeper meaning. Okay, you must have understood. In the said essay, the author Jameson has argued that postmodernism reflects the cultural logic of late capitalism. He suggests that postmodernism is characterized by a shift away from the daft models of modernism to a surface aesthetic where cultural forms are flattened and historical references are pastiche. It has happened, right? There are various mu- musical creations you must have seen where certain rhythm will be repeated again and again, and those things or those rhythm, it lacks depth, only superficiality will be there, so that it will attract the people uh, quickly or automatically. So in other words, those, I am just giving an example related to music. Those musics are beautiful only on the surface level. Okay, they don't have a deep aesthetic value. One of his main arguments is that postmodernism is marked by the proliferation of images and signs that lack a clear referent or original. He uses the example of Disneyland to illustrate this point. Disneyland is a hyperreal environment where the boundary between reality and representation is blurred, creating an artificial world that is more real than reality itself. This, according to Jameson, is characteristics of the postmodern condition where simulations and simulacra dominate. I hope you have understood. So you must have heard about Disneyland. If you go there, then you will get to know that everything is real, more than real. So that environment is an example of hyper real environment where reality and fiction is blurred. So artificial world seems more beautiful, more real. So that is an example of postmodernism. So in the context of today's world, also you can apply this. Due to virtual reality, many movies, many games, it seems that I have been playing that game and these all things are real, right? So that is an example of hyper reality, which is related to postmodernism. Another key argument James makes is that postmodernism is characterized by the fragmentation of social classes and the disappearance of coherent sense of history. He suggests that in a postmodern society, cultural forms are recycled and repackaged without a clear sense of historical progression, leading to a sense of nostalgia and loss of historical depth. So, uh, due to this kind of features manufactured by postmodernism, uh, it often leads to nostalgia and loss of historical depth. Now let's try to know what kinds of argument he has presented. Number one I have collected is surface aesthetic. Okay, according to him, surface aesthetic is available in the context of postmodernism. So he has said that postmodernism moves away from the deep, meaningful styles of modernism to a more superficial, surface level aesthetic. Okay, let's try an example. Think of a shopping mall designed like a medieval castle, which I have already told you. It's a mix of styles without a real historical connection, which is a characteristics of postmodern pastiche. Moving on to number two argument, it is hyper reality. So postmodernism is marked by a sense of hyper reality, where representations become more real than reality itself. Disneyland is a hyperreal environment where the boundary between reality and fantasy is blurred, creating an artificial world that feels more real than the real world outside, right? And it can happen in the various movies also. Argument 3 is saying fragmentation and nostalgia. Postmodernism is characterized by the fragmentation of social classes and a loss of coherent historical narrative. In postmodern culture, all styles and cultural references are recycled and repackaged without a clear sense of historical progression, leading to a feeling of nostalgia for a past that may not have existed as we remember it. Argument 4 is saying consumer culture and commodification. Postmodernism is closely tied to consumer culture where everything, including art and culture, it becomes commodified. So for this, he has given one example that is related to Warhol's Campbell's soup cans that are often cited as an example. The artwork takes a common consumer product and turns it into an art object, blurring the lines between high and low culture. Argument 5 is globalization and cultural homogenization. Postmodernism, it reflects the effects of globalization where local cultures are overshadowed by a global homogenized culture. That is true. The spread of fast food chains like McDonald's around the world, where the same menu and experience are replicated in different countries, erasing local culinary traditions. It has happened, right? You must have seen that nowadays many people they are interested to eat foods from McDonald's. They don't want to eat their native culinary items. So it means due to postmodernism, globalization and cultural homogenization has been born. Argument 6 is saying simulation and simulacra. Postmodernism is characterized by the prevalence of simulations and simulacra, where representations of reality become more important than reality itself. The movie, you must have seen The Matrix, right? So in that movie, it presents a world where people live in a simulated reality, highlighting how simulations can become indistinguishable from reality. So if you have watched that movie, then you will get to know that the world we are living in, it may not be the real world. We are trapped in this world. So it feels like that uh, the boundary between reality and fake non-reality or artificial world is blurred. Argument 7 is decentralization and pluralism. Postmodernism rejects the idea of a single universal truth and instead embraces diversity and multiple perspectives. Postmodernism literature often features multiple narrators of fragmented narratives, reflecting a decentralized and pluralistic worldview. Argument 8 is saying irony and parody. Postmodernism often employs irony and parody to subvert traditional narrative and meanings. The TV show, if you're from America, then you will know The Simpsons, or if you watch American TV show. So it uses irony and parody to critique various aspects of society, including politics, media, and consumer culture that can be a part of that is a part of postmodernism. Most of the examples here I have used is not given by the writer himself, but his main or the fundamental idea is same. Argument 9 is saying technological influence. Postmodernism is influenced by advancements in technology, particularly in communication and media. For example, social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok, it allows users to create and share content that blurs the lines between reality and fiction, contributing to a sense of hyper reality that you must know, that you have known, you must be suffering from it, or you must be experiencing. Argument 10 is saying postmodern architecture. Postmodern architecture reflects the principles of postmodernism, including eclecticism, fragmentation, and irony. The AT&T building in New York City, designed by Philip Johnson, it features a mix of classical and modern architectural elements, reflecting a postmodern approach to design. Argument 11 is cultural hybridity. So postmodernism, it celebrates cultural hybridity and the mixing of different cultural influences. The music genre of world music, it blends traditional and contemporary style from different cultures, reflecting a postmodern approach to music. Got it? Next is fragmentation of identity. Postmodernism challenges traditional notions of identity, leading to a fragmentation and fluidity of identity. Gender fluid individuals who do not identify strictly as male or female, it challenges traditional gender identities, reflecting a postmodern understanding of identity. Uh, then moving on to another argument, that is fragmentation of time and space. Postmodernism is characterized by a sense of dislocation and fragmentation where traditional notions of time and space are disrupted. In the novel Slaughterhouse-Five, you must have read, by Kurt Vonnegut, the protagonist becomes unstuck in time. It by experiencing events from his life in a non-linear fashion, reflecting the fragmentation of time in postmodernism. Then playfulness and intertextuality. Postmodernism often celebrates playfulness and intertextuality where texts refer to and borrow from other texts. It must be seen in various literary contexts. The film, you must have seen Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino, is known for its non-linear narrative structure and its playful references to other films and pop culture, demonstrating postmodern intertextuality. Then globalization and cultural flows. Postmodernism is influenced by the global flow of culture, leading to a mixture and hybridization of cultural forms. You must have known the popularity of K-pop, Korean pop songs, or that pop band. Outside of South Korea, it demonstrates how cultural products can cross borders and influence global market or global trends, reflecting the impact of globalization on postmodern culture. Then deconstruction of grand narratives. This is an another argument. Postmodernism rejects the idea of overarching grand narratives that explain the meaning of history and society. The novel you must have read by Beloved by Toni Morrison, it demonstrates and it deconstructs the grand narrative of slavery in America by focusing on the personal and emotional experience of individuals, challenging the dominant historical narrative. Then cultural pastiche and borrowing. This I have told you, but still, let us try to understand again. Cultural pastiche and borrowing. Postmodernism often borrows and remixes elements from different cultures and historical periods. The fashion trend of retro clothing, where styles from past decades are reinterpreted and worn in a modern context, it reflects a form of cultural pastiche common in postmodern culture. Okay, that's it. I hope you have understood. If you want to know about waiting for Godot, then you have to read that. You have to read that drama. In that drama, you will get postmodernism qualities like fragmented narrative, absurdity and existentialism, metafictional elements, lack of clear meaning, which makes it postmodernist work. And lack of meaning or the questioning of fixed universal meaning is a characteristic often associated with postmodernism. Postmodern thinkers and artists often challenge the idea that there are inherent objective meanings in text, artworks, or even in life itself. Instead, they argue that meaning is subjective, context dependent, and constructed through various cultural, social, and historical influence. In literature, this is reflected in works that are open to multiple interpretations, that blur the boundaries between fiction and reality, or that play with language and form in ways that disrupt traditional meaning-making processes. Waiting for Godot is a prime example of this, as its lack of a clear, definitive meaning invites audiences to interpret the play in various ways, reflecting the postmodern emphasis on ambiguity and multiplicity of meaning. I hope you have understood. I have just tried to present the fundamental concept related to this essay called Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism as presented by Frederic Jameson. You have to read the original text. Do not believe blindly whatever I say. Cross verification is must be done by you. Okay. Thank you so much.